from around the globe come together
to grow, collaborate,
and expand their business.
Where we take our individual fires
and put them together and make one big fire.
This is the Honey Badger Nation.
That's how you start a podcast right there.
Get jacked up right away.
Well, welcome everyone to the Real Estate Revolution podcast. My guest this week is Josh Chessman. He is a fitness lifestyle coach. He's the CEO of joshtrainsme Coaching. He's a father, a real estate investor, a drummer, a podcaster, all around cool dude. And I like your little mission statement, which is you're a catalyst for humans to lean into discomfort and become who they want to be. Welcome to the podcast, Josh.
Yeah, man. Thanks. I'm pumped for this. I got jacked up from your intro too, so we had a double header there.
It's a drop off though, right? When it goes from that hype and then it's silence.
Yeah. Hey, man, that's like every good movie. It can't be action the whole time.
But again, I really appreciate you being here. For those watching, Josh is a trainer and a coach. He's actually my trainer and coach, and we were chatting kind of about our podcast. I think it was kind of your idea, kind of a bit of a crossover. Now, this podcast is real estate centric, but I thought the parallels between, being your optimal self, to be successful in real estate or business, well, it really kind of ties in to health and fitness as well. And obviously you have the real estate background. So I thought we would just hit record and see what happens.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I guess a good kickoff would be what's Josh's story? Tell us a little bit about your background and what you've been up to.
Okay, so yeah, background is, as you kind of listed in the bio, some of those things I've been doing for a long time. So I've been drumming for 21 years or something. So that's been a huge passion. And then fitness has been a really big passion for about the same time. I think I started playing drums in grade 7, and then I started working out in grade 9. And it's been pretty consistent. Truthfully, it's been pretty consistent since, which I'm really lucky about that. I got into real estate when I was, I didn't buy a house when I was 12. I was a little older.
Yeah.
Basically, this is how I got into real estate. When I was 17, my dad said, you need to get a credit card. And I said, okay. I didn't really understand at the time. And he just kept reaming on me about that. So this is one of the few things, or I guess one of the main things I remember. I shouldn't discount it, but he said, get a credit card, start building credit. So I started doing that when I was 16, and I started buying it when I had the money. And then I would be so proactive that I would use a credit card to buy $10 worth of stuff. And then I'd go into the bank and put the money in there right away. So it was inefficient, but this is, 20 years ago or something almost. And then I just started getting involved with people in my network that were way further ahead than me. And I can definitely give a kudos to Craig Dombrowski, a friend of mine that really led me into real estate investing. And truthfully, I just listened to people that were smarter than me. And that was obviously timing was lucky too. But I bought my first house when I was 24, bought the next one when I was 25, and then kind of got into a business. My first business I purchased with a friend, and then another few duplexes when I was about 28. And then that's kind of where we're at now. A couple of years later, I'm in BC, and now I'm a dad. So there's a different kind of stretch of things. And yeah.
Awesome. Congrats. How old is your little one now?
He just turned 2 on the 11th. So a couple days ago. Yeah.
Oh, my daughter turned 1 on the 12th. Maybe there's some sort of future. We can work on that. We can talk about that offline.
Yeah. We can set up another one.
So what's the current status of your real estate portfolio? Have you offloaded? Are you holding? What are you doing in this crazy climate we're in?
So, sort of irrelevant to COVID, when I moved out to BC in September, I didn't want to be involved in the gym based on COVID. That was a big reason. I wasn't interested in holding down a tough to run business through all that shit. And we had already been closed down several times. So we owned the business, didn't own the building. So I sold that to my business partner, who's still running it, who's fucking brave to do it, but he's ballsy and he's making it happen. And then I owned 2 duplexes with a business partner. And when I moved out here, it didn't make a lot of sense for me to stay in the deal. So I got bought out of that. And now I'm basically the income that I'll make from Josh Trains Me lifestyle coaching. As I'm making more money, I'm going to offset that into different real estate. So holding the 2 duplexes in Peterborough, they're fully tenanted. They're nice places. Those are great. I'd like to buy something. Real estate out here is really, really spicy.
Yeah.
I'm like everyone else, I'd like to live on the water, and that means 3 million up. So it's not an easy way to get in, but I don't know. I'm taking a closer look at realtor.ca and talking with more agents out here to kind of get a bit of an idea, kind of get a pulse, right? Because it's a new city and it's completely different than, well, it's not necessarily exactly the same across the country.
Right. Yeah. It's getting a little crazy here. Since September, on average, in and around the Peterborough area, property's gone up almost 25%.
Since September?
Just in October alone, the average increase in a lot of markets around here was about 10%.
Yeah, that's deadly.
Yeah. I remember my first home I bought in 2011. In the first 5 years, it barely increased 5%. And then just October 2021, 10%. It's just insanity about this way.
Yeah, that's the shitty thing, man. I think about, well, not the shitty thing. It depends on what side of the coin you're in. But the thing is, a lot of us are at least paying for something. So
right.
I feel super rough for how, I don't know how I would do it if I was just looking at buying a house now for the first time.
No. And then, well, on the other side of that, it's not only can they not afford, that whole generation is the rental prices are ludicrous at this point. The home beside is rented for $4,000 like a month.
What size house is it?
It's like a newer, it's like a 5-year-old. It's a 5-bedroom. It's a good size, like 3,000 square foot home, like a newer home. But still, I think it listed for $3,000 for a lease, and they got competition on that, and ended up going for
$4,000. Yeah,
you're seeing like you'll have a couple. They did like a bit professionals. Like I had a friend who he's a lawyer, and his wife had a really good job, and they could barely afford something coming into the market.
Yeah. So no, I don't know, man. I think of this, just the amount of houseless folks, and I don't know, I'm not going to get into the social kind of political side of things because I'm really not educated on that, but I just kind of wonder, I'm like, what's going to happen?
There's some things in the work. Like I know CMHC they rolled out something a few years ago where they'll help first-time home buyers with their deposits, and I think you pay them back over a set amount of time. But there's other products apparently coming. They got to do something. But
yeah.
But on a lighter note,
yeah.
What I thought, I have you on, I thought would be really interesting is we talked about the parallels kind of between fitness goals and actually having business goals. Mm-hmm. And I thought, could you talk a little bit about I guess goal setting, when your goal setting approach to with your clients? But as I said, I believe there's a lot of parallels between that approach and approach to goal setting in general.
Yeah, I could just turn the computer and you could see the whiteboard here. I pretty much always have a whiteboard going. So some of the common points are the ways in which you'd set goals, but truthfully, it's changed a lot for me in the past, over the years. Even because I did a presentation on this, or a webinar, I think last Sunday or this past Sunday, and it was on some of the neuroscience, the new science of goal setting, because it's not as if it's there's certain books that are timeless, but there's certain strategies that aren't. So for goal setting, that was something that I'm really, really interested in, and I was interested in it. So I thought, I'm gonna dig around and see if there's some new kind of, there's clearly a lot of people educating themselves and challenging these ways in which we can be more productive and more efficient, and goal setting and motivation is sort of the underlying, part of that. But so what I've kind of learned recently, just to summarize part of this webinar, is choose, one or two lofty goals.
Right.
Lofty meaning hard, but not to the point where you're going to be like, how the fuck am I going to do this? So one or two, most people apparently can't handle more than one or two goals in sort of over a longer period. And these are big goals. These are things that you're basically working towards every day, right? So one of mine would be real estate wise. So I have two financial goals. One's with the Josh Trains Me company. It's certainly not only financial. There's obviously I want to get certain clients to be able to help them in these ways. But, a part of that goal is the real estate too. And that's how I get a lot of my financial income and where I invest heavily as well. So you set these lofty goals, and then you have to have a concrete plan. So it's not just about setting the goal, because if you don't do anything with it from there, just like a fitness goal, it's like, what are you doing? Right. It's kind of just like daydreaming. And I'm not a big fan of that. I like daydreaming. For me is thinking about goals and then thinking about how I'm going to get there. Right. So not to discount, having a light afternoon, but when it comes down to goal setting, I'm pretty serious about it. So you set these two lofty goals, and then you're going to create some type of concrete plan. So you need some actual actionable steps that you're going to take that do line up in some way. So they're not just completely random. You need to know okay, are these things aimed at the same trajectory? Are these things going to support that? And then there was this was really interesting. I used to be a big fan of visualization in all forms. With lifting weights, I'd visualize before I'm getting under the bar to squat this heavy weight. I'd visualize myself going through the reps to completion. I don't know if this is completely contrasting that, but this is the concept of foreshadowing or visualizing failure versus visualizing success. So I want to dig in a little bit more kind of off the record to see if they're talking about fitness endeavors. But in terms of things like real estate or financial or career goals, part of the step is determining a assessment / kind of reflection piece. So how often are you going to do pulse checks on your goals? This is probably the biggest missing piece of people's success in my mind, is they might set the goal, they might even start to work towards the goal, but they don't check in to see how they're doing. And that can be, that's just leaking. It's leaking time, and it's fairly inefficient, I think, overall, if they're big goals. So you set up a pulse check frequency, something that you can maintain. So for me, it's every week. And I look at my goals and I look at, okay, are these concrete things I'm working towards? Are they still on trajectory? And then I foreshadow failure. So I write down the things what is my life going to look like if I don't get here? So I talk about how's life going to be different for my son? How's life going to be different for me? How am I going to feel different? You're sort of putting yourself in the mindset of this would be pretty shitty if I didn't get to those goals that I really want to get to. And, here's why. And then it's basically a repeat system from there.
What I found interesting, and I would struggle with goal setting. And the one thing I did a little differently that's helped a lot was about a year ago. I usually have my 5-year plan. Mm-hmm. And as you just said, you're saying weekly. What I did that was different was I did a 90-day sub plan. Mm. And then, so I would detail, what do I have to do in the next 90 days to achieve my my long-term goal? And as soon as I started doing that, every 3 months, I'll review it. I'll grade myself. I literally score it. I don't think I've got more than a C+, but I feel like ever since I started doing that, I'm not where I want to be. This is for business, but I feel like I've really started to move the needle in the last year when I started doing this. And when I was listening to your webinar, I was like, I'm doing it every 90 days. Maybe there needs to be some sort of weekly accountability, or at least a little bit more frequent than the 90 days I'm doing. But I saw a huge change just going from my 5-year plan to my 90-day little sub plan. I thought that was a game changer for me.
That's great. And I've heard of 90-day is sort of a buzzword too for goal setting and short-term goal setting. I've heard it in lots. I remember hearing it in MLM, when I was a part of Isogenics, there was a 90-day plan. I'm not with them anymore. I've heard 90-day plans and all sorts of things. So I think it's definitely effective. I think the reason it's effective is because you went from thinking about it in 5 years to 90 days. Yeah. And like, to me, thinking that long-term has always been difficult for me. So even to create a plan for 5 or 10 years, I've never actually successfully done that. I don't like thinking that far into the future in terms of like planning. I like to think like a year or two. So
you mentioned in the webinar too, that for those lofty goals, it's usually best to keep them within a year. Because if as soon as you go past that 1 year mark, it's just, you kind of can go off the rails, or it's hard to stay motivated, I guess.
I think so. And it's for most people, like you yourself, you might feel okay being like, no, I'm going to get there in 5 years and then I'll break it down. But I know for some people, it's so easy to set a long-term goal and then just like fucking check out.
Right.
It's like 5 years is so long. I can coast. Right. I can relax. I can sit back for a year and then start. It's like, maybe there's not enough sense of urgency. That's how I picture it. I don't know any of the neuroscience behind that, but that's my guess, is it's just too long of a time. So I like the 1 or 2 year. I like the 1 year approach for sure. That seems to be like bite size enough. And I like the like weekly for me is good. That's how I do it with a lot of my clients, is weekly check-ins. And that's usually what works well for people, but it could be less or more frequent as well. It's whatever you can do consistently.
Yeah, my 5 years is more like some sort of early retirement plan.
Yeah,
I think my fitness goals, I like to set them closer. Just like what we're in the middle of this 12-week challenge. Yeah, and I just know how I am mentally. I know the last 4 weeks I'll just go balls out. I mean, I had a good start. I don't want to be an excuse person, but I had a couple of hurdles, and then I'll just go really hard in the last like 4 weeks. To try and get there. But if I could funnel that kind of mindset I have, in the crunch time mindset, I feel like that I would unlock success if I could apply that just daily.
Right.
Like I need that sense of urgency or pressure to really amp up my motivation. But
yeah, and I struggle with that too sometimes, man. It's like I don't always feel like I'm nailing it. Like truthfully, like yesterday midday, I was like, fuck it, man. I'm going to enjoy a meal and I'm going to sit and watch Seinfeld for 20, 30 minutes. And I was like, yeah, I don't do that often. I'm going to do that, and that's fine. So what I have written down here is, today I'm going to work hard /smart /intentional, because I don't know. You hear a lot of different sort of like buzzwords around like work hard. No, don't work harder, work smarter. And like, I've always thought of it a little differently, like work with more intention, because that doesn't necessarily mean working harder or working smarter or working more or working less. It's just like being a little bit more like mindful about what you're trying to do. And it's a really subtle change, but I don't know. For me, it helps things stay. Being intentional, I think, is important with your goals. So.
Yeah, what I really found interesting, and I'm just looking at it right here, is the Playbook.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about, and for those that don't know, I guess a little bit of background on what the Playbook is and how you implement it for your clients?
Yeah. So the Playbook is something that, again, I've been interested in goal setting. Like I find it interesting. Like motivation, and I talked about dopamine in this webinar, so there's like lots of different angles you can take with it. The reason I put the Playbook in, it's basically my like in-depth set to goal setting. So I did it I created this because I thought that it could be more effective for people, and I didn't have like a system for it. It was more to sort of just random individualized things per client. Right. And this at least is like, it's like, well, this is the thing we're going to start with, and then we can individualize it from there. So it's just a good, starting point or a standard. Some of the concepts in there are based on Grant Cardone's goal setting.
Yeah.
Which he's an absolute monster when it comes to stuff. Like I got this book, like, I think 8 years ago, a client bought it for me. He was into business. He was like, he's from Peterborough, who recommended this or bought it for me. And I really liked it. It's really intense. It's kind of cutthroat, whatever. So I took a lot of the concepts of some of the goal setting I was doing with him, but I just personalized it more to how I thought it would work well for clients, because not everyone is like set massive goals and just absolutely crush it. Like, I don't know. Truthfully, I just think some people are maybe not that keen on changing too much. So basically how the playbook starts is the first page is you set your, like, where do you want to be? And it's under 6 categories. So in terms of fitness, I tried to encompass the things that I thought were sort of that cover everything, because there's obviously a lot of elements of fitness that we could get into, but there's a column for strength, endurance, mobility, and then there's nutrition, sleep, and then lifestyle. So certainly there's other buckets you could talk about, but I thought these sort of, sort of blend everything in or cover everything. Yeah. The first page is you're just going to write about where do you want to be. Okay. And you can think of this as like sort of long-term or maybe a year. I wouldn't think shorter than a year. So just kind of where you picture yourself, and you're going to be as descriptive as possible. So commonly what happens is people, and like even you and I went over this, and I go over this with other clients. It's after they've set these, I'll go over them with them. And sometimes I just read it back and I say, is that specific, or like, what does that mean? So I want to get more fit. And I'm like, okay, so it says you want to get more fit. I have no idea what that means. Yeah. So the point of that is for you to be clear enough so that when you're having an absolute shit day and you're depressed, or you're feeling like a bag of pucks and you're sitting on the couch, that you can read that and know exactly where you're trying to get to, not more fit. So it's a non-subjective approach, essentially. Right. It's very objective. Then there's 4 pages following, and those steps are, the next page is amplify those goals even more. So you look at those 6 columns of goals, you amplify all of them. The one caveat to that is if you're already aiming for like a really intense weight loss, I'm not saying like, okay, fucking 5 more times, let's see if you can get down to 18 pounds. That might be like, I'm going to lose weight but feel better, or I'm going to lose weight but then also be stronger, or something in addition to that. Yeah. The reason I put that in is because it's like the starting of self-belief, essentially. So I find a lot of folks, by the way, I like the word failure, so I'm going to use it here. I find a lot of people fail because they don't have self-belief. And I find that sometimes just stretching your mind to think like, okay, I want to put 10 pounds of muscle on, that make that goal bigger. That mind stretching could be like, fuck, 20 pounds of muscle. Holy shit. Is that possible? Like, it gets you into thinking like, is that even realistic? And it's not meant to say like, if we don't get to that goal, then you're a failure. It's just like to get your mind thinking a little bit beyond where you even think you could end up.
Yeah. I thought it was great because when I was filling it out, I fell in that trap. And when I had my goals, they were kind of like what you just said, they were generic. Yeah. And then when you forced me to do that deeper dive, then I started like, just maybe I want a half marathon, maybe, or one of those triathlons. I like up my game from, doing this many push-ups or this and that. I might as well set the bar high. If I fall short, I'm probably still in a pretty sweet place.
That's it, man. That's the whole thing. It's kind of like setting 2 bars. 1 bar is like way above. You're like, I don't even know how I'm going to get there. But I see this other bar that's a little lower that like, I know how I'm going to get there. And that's going to be awesome. So it's just kind of like a big step and then a huge step. So in a way, it's kind of like the 1 year and the 5 year, if you wanted to look at it like that. So beyond that, and I agree with you, it's helpful. I think it's really helpful, but you actually have to do it, right? And that's the hardest part, is actually doing it. So the fact that you did it is great. So from there, it's looking at obstacles. So it's a personalized way, like you are filling it out on your own, right? Sometimes I'll help people through it, but essentially you're going to download this and just kind of go at it in your own head. And the goal of identifying obstacles is there are going to be obstacles, whether you're, an alcoholic, or you're like, on a more serious note, maybe you're like, there's some abuse, or maybe you just don't have a car and you need to go to the gym, or maybe you don't have any weights, or maybe you don't have the money to buy the weights, or maybe, maybe there's no grocery store around you, or maybe you're lazy, or maybe you're addicted to TV, or maybe you drink way too much coffee and you know it. Like, there's lots of examples. We all have obstacles in our lives, and it makes us human. But to put it down on paper is a really realistic, reflecting exercise to be like, okay, if I'm going to recognize these as obstacles, then at least they're out in front.
Yeah.
Right. So it puts some real honesty. It's like some real honest reflection. And you do that for all 6. So chances are, like, if you're like, I prioritize watching Ozark over going to bed, it's like, that's going to affect all of them. Yeah. So you can write that into all of them. You're not working on how you're going to fix it. You're just saying, what are the obstacles? Like, what do I think? What do I know to be in my way? And then the next page is looking at what you're willing to sacrifice based on what you're doing now. And that's not for me to get involved. It's nothing to do with me. It's just, what are you willing to do? Maybe there's something that you're like, I'm actually just going to commit to watching 20 minutes less TV a day.
Right.
Or maybe there's a lot of things. Maybe you're like, I'm really ready to do a full overhaul in my life. And that's usually where like more intense coaching comes in. And then the final page is you're getting a baseline. So you're like, okay, here's where the first page is where I want to get to. I need to know where I'm at so I can have 2 data points.
Yeah.
Okay. If I want to get to 100 push-ups and I don't know how many push-ups I can do right now, I don't want to guess. There's no sense guessing, because then I really don't know where I'm starting from. So the baseline is getting as clear again of an idea of where you're at, so that you actually know if these goals are like fairly realistic or not at all. So I had a client that we've gone through the playbook 3 months ago, and I kind of went through, okay, are these goals specific? Like, what does this goal mean? It doesn't sound like it's even that important. We changed things around. And then we got to the point where we were getting the baseline, and they were actually exceeding some of the goals they originally set. And it's because they didn't know where their starting point was. Yeah. So like, that can happen too. And that's kind of like best case scenario in a lot of ways. Yeah. So then we go back to page 1. It's like, hey, you got to set some bigger goals then, because you're already at your goals.
I was happy when I was going through it that one of the 6 categories was sleep, because I feel like that's been my biggest obstacle with a baby and a toddler that both like don't really sleep that much. And you got like permanent bags on your eyes, and the energy is zapped, and it's just trying to get the energy up when you're sleep deprived is a pretty big obstacle, I find.
It is, man. It's huge. It's really challenging for parents. Yeah, that's a real obstacle for sure. Yeah.
No, but yeah, this is great. Like, and I like you also had the lifestyle in there too, which I found kind of interesting, because I kind of had to have an honest look in the mirror. I'm like, what's the lifestyle choices I'm making that's stopping me from reaching my goals, right?
Yeah.
And if it is like too much TV, or to be honest, I probably work too much.
Yeah.
And I probably need to allocate a little bit more of that work time towards like the health and fitness.
Right.
And ironically enough is when I feel like when I'm really hitting on the exercise, I just have more energy, and it's like easier for me to work and hit all my other goals. So it's kind of like chicken and the egg kind of the dance I get stuck in.
I find that too, man. Truthfully, I hear all the time. I'm in a men's group. I talk to people all the time about how they feel better from exercise, but like me too. And it's not even just I feel better. It's the fact that I feel like I have more grace throughout the day. So if I didn't exercise in the morning, that's when I basically need to exercise in the morning so I can start with that. That's like a good primer for me. My body's not the most, capable in the morning. If I was like a training as an athlete, I would work on, based on circadian rhythm and look at the times where I'm going to be most that extra 3 to 5% output. But I need to do it as a primer. And I find so this morning I trained, did some cold shower stuff, and I just felt like I'm just really accepting of the amount of work I'm going to do today, and I don't need to do more. I'm just going to be a little bit more diligent about these things and enjoy what I'm doing.
Yeah. Versus
waking up and just okay, I got to crush all this stuff. And then that's a really old mindset for me, where it's you got to do more. It's no, I might do more, but that's not the main goal. The goal is to be intentional about what I'm doing and to have fun.
And not bite your mouthpiece and just give her.
Yeah, sometimes about doing that, but not for me, not all the time. Because then you just get into this perpetual cycle of like, I'm just giving her all the time. And I feel like that's really leaky energy onto other things. And I don't want to be that way with my son. And I don't want to be that way with workouts. And I don't want to be that way with clients. It's like, I'm just leaning in, like, you can't slow me down.
No.
It's not a healthy way for me to live. And I don't think it's a healthy way for a lot of people to live. It just feels like you have to do that because we're kind of burnt out, or we're not sleeping well, or we don't we're not very efficient with our time. It's sort of a difficult combination of the things I mentioned, I think.
Now, while I have you here, just to pivot over to nutrition just for a second, I was interested to hear your thoughts on intermittent fasting. Because I caught one of your videos kind of talking about it, but what are your thoughts on that strategy for, well, I guess not just weight loss, just like lifestyle?
Yeah. So there's a good book I'm going to recommend if you want to do a really deep dive. Where is it? Anyway, it's called fucking Intermittent Fasting, I believe. Pretty basic title.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's somewhere here. Yeah. Anyway. Oh, there it is. Perfect. That's it.
Yeah.
No, it's not it. I haven't in years. Intermittent fasting. I think it can be effective for weight loss, and I think it can be effective for increasing energy. I also think it can be effective for folks that are maybe a little bit slammed for time and they don't want to take the time to like cook or have a meal, because it's, it basically cuts out time where you'd be eating. So it's pretty convenient for people, actually. It's like one of the few things you can add in that makes it even more convenient, I think. It's one of the few things I can think of. There's certain times I wouldn't recommend it, and it's people that have like chronic stress disorders, or like where their nervous systems are really stressed out. I learned this recently from a therapist, which was an interesting angle on this, and it was saying their thought was that when we don't eat, we stress our body. Okay. So when we don't eat during normal windows of time, of course, we stress our body. We're signaling, that we're not, the food's not coming in. So there's like some reptilian parts of our brain that are like, shit, what's happening? Why is there no breakfast? So I thought that was an interesting perspective. So I would say because the actual approach of fat loss and weight loss is stressful to your system, that I would be mindful of adding that to someone that's already has a really hard time managing stress and that's already in like a long-term weight loss situation. So that's one sort of something I would be mindful of. But overall, I really like it. I mean, I used to fast. There was a couple of years where I fasted myself most days. It was easier. I felt like I had really good energy. I got to the point where like my strength workouts were feeling good. My endurance workouts felt really good. It was just easier in the morning. You're like, one less thing I need to focus on. And I know that you like doing it as well, right?
Yeah, I feel like I naturally almost intermittent fast. I usually don't like to eat anything till after 9 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And I usually don't eat late to begin with. So to me, I was already doing like a 14-hour fast. So I just kind of tweaked it to get to a 16-hour fast.
Yeah.
So I usually try not to have anything. But as I learned from chatting with you the last time about it, I was actually breaking my fast with probably a little bit of dairy in my coffee in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was the one tweak I've made in the last couple of weeks. So
did you cut the dairy, or did you put something else in instead?
To be honest, because my ideal day starts with working out. It hasn't been really possible with the sleep schedule in the house, but it's starting to get a little bit better. And when I can get those, I'm basically not hungry for an hour after a workout. So if I can start my day working out, I've been trying to go without any kind of pre-workout supplement now. Mm-hmm. I feel like the first 10 minutes or so might be a little sluggish, but then I get going with my workout and I'm good to go. So I'm trying to take out the stimulant, the pre-workout stimulant, and trying to do it natural, because I'm a little aware that my crutch was caffeine for the last little while. So I'm trying to scale that down. So that's what I'm trying to do.
That's legit. I really honor that if people can do that. Like remove the crutches where you're like, okay, this is a crutch, I'm going to remove it. And then you can use it more as a tool versus like a black or white. Like I either need it or, I can't have it and I'm depriving myself of that. It used to be like that with music for me. I used to listen to music every workout. And then there's a couple of years where I was like, no, man, I'm just going to focus on what I'm doing. And then I've got back to the point where I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to use these things intermittently. It's like back to a different balance of like, I don't need music, but I like it and I enjoy it. So I'm going to use it. And it's the same thing with coffee or pre-workout. I haven't taken pre-workout in years. I'm just like, fuck that, man. I don't need that. It helps. I think I haven't had it in a long time, but coffee is a good pre-workout if you're going to have it.
I find I go back and forth. I like music for a little bit, but I find if I don't have music and it's just the silence, I don't know, I get focused. I'm more present in the workout than kind of drifting into the music. But sometimes you need it too.
Totally. And that's kind of back to like, what's your intention? So if it's like setting an intention for everything you're doing, that, that's actually kind of challenging to do, but I think it's good practice. So if your intention is like, fuck, I just got to have fun with this workout. It's like, maybe just put on some old music that you really like. It's like, great. Then that's serving that purpose. And then if you're like, I'm having a really hard time, I'm just really disconnected from my body, then it's like, maybe I'm not going to have music on. Right. I think it depends. I think that's important for it to not have to be only one way or you're fucking not doing it. I think that's part of why adaptability is important.
I used to also go back and forth with, I liked having a gym buddy. Mm-hmm. It's really good. Sometimes like pushing yourself, but then that's good for 3 months. But then I kind of like to go like solo for another 2-3 months. And then my workout buddy's like, what happened?
Yeah. Like I'm just before you, man. Yeah. Catching them on the way out, high-fiving them. Peace, man. Yeah, gym buddies are important too. And it's kind of the interesting part of, the last 2 years for a lot of us is that, in Peterborough, especially, like gyms were shut down a lot. Like I owned a gym and co-owned a gym and it was brutal. Like open, close, fucking mask, spray your hands, spray your eyes, don't come in, show that, it's just, there's just a lot. And I think that was a big piece of what people were missing was community and that camaraderie because, more distancing and less people in and less accessibility for some people. So I think in some ways though, it's been good to practice. Okay, what happens when I don't have other people to help me?
Right.
And unfortunately that I think for a lot of people that looks like not doing it, unfortunately, but I think it's good to at least reflect on that and be like, so it turns out I really rely on other people or other things in order to get this workout in. So it could be like, if I don't get pre-workout, I don't do it. If I don't have coffee before, I don't do it. If I don't have other people around, I don't do it. If I don't have the right music, I don't do it. Like that starts to become really, really limiting, I think, for a lot of people. And sort of dangerous.
Without gym buddies, no one would ever do a leg workout, right? I always needed a gym guy on leg day.
Did you?
That was the one because I feel like I don't cut corners. As soon as I go into a gym, I'm like, okay, I'm here for a reason.
Yeah.
But the one is, I'm like, well, I run, I play squash. My legs are getting engaged, and I kind of
that. Yeah, man, squash is a great sport, eh?
Oh yeah, I can't wait. They're open back up again.
Are they?
That's one thing I noticed with the pandemic. It's because we talked about this. Like my workout is very like cyclical. I'll work out really hard for a while and then I kind of coast. But I always had those crutch sports I was playing. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be inactive. But when you remove all of that, and I'm not playing a squash a couple times a week, or back when I used to play soccer or whatever, when that disappears, and then then that COVID weight starts to show itself. I found it was just kind of I woke up and I was like, oh, we're right.
You know what I love about sports though is being fit overall is really helpful, but sometimes people are really good at the sport and that really dominates overall fitness. Like for instance, I used to play squash with this guy. He was like, I don't know, he's probably 20 years older than me. So he's in his mid 50s. So like he's not peak. He's actually like pretty overweight, but he would just crush me in squash because he knew where to place the ball. And I would sometimes know where it's going, but those shots where they get hit in the corner, you're like, fuck, man, I don't know how to hit this without smashing my racket. Yeah.
Well, we call it the old guys. They give you the tour. We call it.
Yeah, you're just like all over the place. That's a good term.
But
Yeah, man.
that's why I always like playing squash players that are better than me for exercise purposes. You're playing someone a lot better than you, or you're better than them. It's just you're doing the same to them, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, they're just like placing the ball. It's like a mental game for them.
Well, if you make your way back down this way, we'll have to get a game in.
Yeah, I'd be super keen on that. I haven't played in like quite a few years, but I'd love to.
Good. I'll give you the tour.
I'm not accepting that tour.
So
yeah.
Do you mind going through, because I remember with the Josh Train Me business, there's lots of different products and services you offer. Do you mind highlighting a few of those?
I don't mind at all. If I don't, no one's going to, so I better. I've turned myself a fitness and lifestyle coach. Part of the reason is because I'm not doing just conventional personal training now. It's a lot more beyond that. Even when you look at the goal setting, the Playbook, goal setting guide, like there's lifestyle, there's sleep in there. There's more. We're looking at these pillars a little bit more in depth. So that's part of the reason I changed that. So one of the main service, which has 3 different tiers, is one-on-one coaching. So it's anywhere from, checking in a couple times a week to like longer sessions every week. So we generally do workouts online, but there's a lot of accountability built into that. They get access to like additional content. They get additional support. They get to text me when they want. So I basically help people with like workout plans, with like routines, and someone to be accountable to and to check in with, because a lot of people don't have that right now. And for folks that are like, especially for folks that are like working from home and like maybe don't live with anyone else, like you got to be so on to see any progress. So hiring a coach, if you're in that kind of boat, can be really beneficial for the one-on-one stuff. So that's kind of the first tier. And then I also do like what you're a part of. I do this 12-week transformation, which is a group, private Facebook group. I'm doing different webinars every week, and there's like worksheets with that. There's like a competitive nature to that. Like the winner gets 50% off the next training investment, which is pretty huge. Yeah. And then I have a couple things that are in the works are subscription based. So there's going to be a course subscription that you get access to the library of courses that we have. That'll be ongoing monthly, like new courses monthly. So the courses we have in there are things around like routine improvements for like overall living better. And then we have things on how to work with your physiology, breath work, and kind of so forth. So that's meant for people that want like some additional support without actually hiring a coach. Right. And like the price point reflects that. And then we have an Accelerator Program, which is actually completely new. The reason we did this Accelerator Program, we had some clients, some other coaches reach out to me and be like, how are you doing that? Like, that's so cool that you did that. So I was like, oh yeah, sure. I'll show you how to do that. And then they were like, well, yeah, I'd like to like book a time and like, pay you for the service. So I was like, okay, like better yet, I'm not a marketing expert. I've been training people for a long time. So I linked up with the guy I hired for marketing, which is, his title is basically like my right-hand man, because I asked him to do all sorts of shit he's not doing, not qualified to do, so to speak. And he's like, okay, I'll try that. So now we have 2 guys that have been in their industry for, 7 to 11 years. And we're both on these calls to help coaches take their business online and to implement these certain things so that they can actually start to see more progress with that. So
is that like train the trainer?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Essentially, that's what it would be called, train the trainer. And I honestly love that, because these are people that are really motivated and they're already helping a lot more people. And this really helps. Selfishly, this helps me with my goal, which is helping more people. So if I can, positively touch a coach that has, 10 to 500 clients, then I'm like, fucking right. I'm just helping. Now I'm like indirectly helping even more people and spreading it. So that's really helpful for me.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's fun. So
last, like how can people get in touch with you?
Well, the goal is for people to be able to be in touch with me on anything, but the best way would be Instagram or Facebook or email. But truthfully, I'm on quite a few platforms now. I think I'm on Twitter, I'm on TikTok, I'm on YouTube, I'm on, I don't know, some other stuff as well. I have a hard time with that, but email, Instagram's good. Instagram is my main one.
Yeah, we've been in the voice recordings back and forth on Instagram. I like that.
The voice yeah, it's good, right?
Yeah, it works. What I'll do is I'll put up all the links, the best ways to get in contact with you. I'll link them all below so people get in touch with you. So I just want to thank you for doing this today. There's so many ways we could have gone. We're going to have to do this again, and it's just going to be drumming and music, probably the next one, I'm thinking.
Cool. Yeah.
We'll get into some other stuff. So again, thanks for the training and everything we're doing. I'm looking forward to winning that 50% discount.
Nice.
If anyone from our 12-week program is watching, I'm just throwing a little shade at them.
That's awesome, Dave. I love the competition. I appreciate you having me on, and I want to help more people, and I know you do too in different ways. So I love linking up in this way. It's great.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for doing this, and have an awesome day.
You too, man.
This is Honey Badger Nation,
where real estate agents from around the globe come together
to grow, collaborate,
and expand their business.
Where we take our individual fires
And put them together and make one big fire.
This is the Honey Badger Nation.